Welcome into Tape Don't Lie, and as the college basketball season starts to wind down, we got a couple of guys that we want to highlight and really get into the aspects of their game that point out to us, and hopefully we can see if they're going to be NBA players. So my man Tim Doyle, Cam Smith, of course, we're going to do this thing. You ready to do it?
You know, I used to have a black book when I was single. Now I have a black book, and this is my scouting report here, you know what I mean? So I got the book on both these guys, and we're going to break it down X and O and show you why these are one of the top two guards in all of college basketball.
All right, TD, let's do it. First up is going to be Jared Butler of Baylor, one of the top programs and teams in the country that we have this season. And this dude has really stepped up his game in his sophomore season, Tim. Obviously, his numbers are up scoring-wise, his shooting percentages. So one thing that stands out to me and what stands out to a lot of people is just his poise when he comes to scoring the basketball.
Yeah, and he can score really at all three levels, whether it's at the pick and roll, as you're going to see on tape right here, or just creating off the bounce. And the way the game has really evolved, Cam, is everybody runs the pick and roll. So you got to have something in your game as far as creating on this bounce. What stands out to you on this particular play?
The big thing is his poise on this screen, right? So you're going to see him set up and just kind of bait his defender over to one side. So he knew he was going back left the entire time. So he wanted that one-on-one isolation with that big. And you see the setup here. When he drags his ball over, look at the effort, right? It's all a setup move. So as he takes it off this screen, he knows he's coming right back. Set that guy up, a hard plant with that right foot, and he's going to spin right into the lane.
Yeah, there's going to be a common theme as far as exploiting big guys and going after them. Why? Because they don't move their feet side to side, and they want to avoid getting that matchup. Why? Because you can get put in the spin cycle just like that.
Yeah, this kid, number 12, I don't know what he's doing. I mean, you have to read the scouting report. He's got you one time already, so you know if he's going hard left, he's going to spin back. But as you mentioned, Tim, a lot of the NBA game influences the college game, and we see the pick and roll. So if you're a guard with Butler's size, he's only 6'3". That's what they list him as. So I'm sure he's going to be a little bit shorter than that without shoes. But if you're a guard, you have to be able to work this ball screen and score against the bigger players.
Yeah, and I think the evolution now of, yes, threes and layups is so important from analytics standpoint, but you also got to have a floater. You got to have some sort of mid-range game here. This is just flat-out disrespect. Look at him wave the hand. I've been that defender at times, and then when you're guarding a guy that just goes, all right, everybody else get out of the way, you're like, oh no, I'm on a lonely island right now.
You know what? We got something in common because I've been that defender too, and it just feels like everybody in the arena leaves out and it's just you playing one-on-one against a great player like Jared Butler. But again, it's his finishing that stands out to me and what is on the top of the list for a lot of NBA scouts, because you're going to need a guy that can do that.
You know, you want to respect his three because he's shooting over 6 threes a game, but this is the aspect of his game that's really evolved. He's more than just a shooter, a flat-out scorer. Baylor's having a fantastic year. They've won 17 straight, and it's really been their guards. What stands out to you here besides some broken ankles?
Oh, may I have this dance? Excuse me 1 second while I get two in the book. I mean, this is pure isolation, obviously, NBA game again, but he knows the mismatch that he has, and he's just going to beat him with speed. Sets him up with the bait dribble, but then watch the crossover. This guy, number 24, I don't know what he's doing. He almost just lost his ankle, but it's one of those things where you have a guard, you have to understand KYP, know your personnel. You know that Butler's going to attack. You talk about his shooting percentages. He's shooting 42% from the field. He's doing one of the things that he does best, and that's just get to the rim. Look at this breakdown. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to get 2 at the rim.
You see, you want to respect the 3 here, but as a defender, you got to force guys to your offhand. He's so strong going to his right hand, and that's what he is. He's a flat-out scorer, and he can score in so many different ways.
Yeah, and coming off this down screen here off the baseline, it's his poise, it's the patience, it's his body positioning that he has as well that stands out to me. So it helps guys that are undersized like Butler score in the paint. He's not rushing all the time. He has a certain pace that he accelerates with. As he comes off of this stagger screen on the baseline, here he is. Now watch that. As soon as he gets into the lane, he even freezes again. So there are 2 moments when he catches that basketball that he freezes, right? So we're going to run through it again as he comes off of this staggered screen on the baseline. Go ahead and run it, guys. And this is what stands out to me even more, and stands out to a lot of NBA teams and scouts, right? Here's the first catch. There's the pause there. Here's another one there, just to see what the defense is going to do. Taking those pictures, those mental pictures in his eyes to see how guys are playing them is beautiful.
I think that's been the biggest evolution from when we played in the 90s and early 2000s to now, has been the change of pace.
Yeah.
You know, at the highest level, we see guys like Harden or Steph Curry. Chris Paul's so good at change of pace. And now those are the guys you watch. Those are the guys you worship. Yeah. And now it starts rubbing off on guys that are 12, 13 out into the college games. You don't necessarily have to be the fastest guy on the floor, but if you change speeds, you can obviously get a lot of buckets.
And he's a guy that spearheads this Baylor defense, and you see the stats there. He's averaging almost 2 steals a game. So with his on-ball pressure, he brings it on the defensive end as well as the offensive end. And we're going to see him in Kansas and against one of the better point guards in the country.
Well, this was a big-time win for Baylor, and what they do, they really stifled the Jayhawks, a team that's had its way in the Big 12, and they really took them out of their offensive rhythm. When I talk to NBA personnel, what they kind of are concerned about Jared Butler at the next level is the consistency on both ends. We all know he could score.
Right.
We just showed you how many different ways he can go out there and get buckets. But when he wants to play defense, because that's all defense is just want, he could be one of the best two-way players in all of college basketball.
And we know this defense is desire, Tim, and whatever team drafts him when he decides to come out of Baylor, he's going to have to play a role because he's not going to be the guy on that team unless you're going to a terrible franchise. Then that might change a little bit. But he has to understand that if he's going to play a role, it starts with defense.
We always like comparisons, right? We start doing this right when we step on a floor. Who does he remind you of that, let's just say, is an elite level player at the next level?
Well, I'm going to have to go with Jimmy Butler, and it's ironic that they have the same last name, but he's an undersized Jimmy Butler, and Jimmy Butler is great with his strength, his upper body positioning when he gets to the rim, and that's what I see with Jared Butler coming off of these screens, and this is a part of his game that needs to grow more and more, is getting his teammates involved, right? So he's only averaging 3 assists a game. I think for a guy of his caliber, his talent, he can do a lot more when it comes to assisting because he's going to draw the defense in because, as we mentioned, he can score the basketball. He's averaging 15 a game. But when you get your teammates involved, that just adds another layer to your game.
You know, it's a really interesting guard dynamic there at Baylor when you have a guy like Davion Mitchell and Monsieur Teague. You know, Teague's more of the shooter, Mitchell's more of the defender. And then you have a guy like Butler who can do a little bit of everything. Coming into the year, Baylor was only ranked 16th in the preseason.
Disrespectful.
They've won 17 straight games, and they do rely so much on their physicality and the Freddie Gillespie's of the world and just beating you up on the glass, blocking shots and rebounding. But their trio of guards, spearheaded by Butler, I think has led them to this elite category. Do you believe they can cut down the nets when it's all said and done?
You like putting me on the spot right now. It's supposed to be the other way around. I got you, though. But I think they can because we saw the stat earlier. Defense. We know this is an old cliche saying, but I do believe it. I'm sure you believe it as well, even though we weren't great defenders. But defense wins championships. And in a season of parity in college basketball, you have to be able to have a team that when it comes down to it, those late game situations that can lock guys down, and you have a guard like Jared Butler that spearheads that on-ball defense as well. So I think they can cut down the nets and bring a title back.
I think what we normally see in March is guard play.
Yeah.
And you got to make what I like to call big boy buckets. And when you watch a guy like Jared Butler, he's able to create for himself. He's got enough talent around them. They have physicality. And I think it's key that you have to win different ways in the tournament.
Right.
You got to be able to get 80 once in a while, and then you got to grind out those 55, 53 wins as they did against Kansas. I believe you're right. I think Butler and Baylor could beat anybody on any given night.
And what also helps you is three-point shooting. Now, he puts them up. Now, he's not bashful about shooting threes. He's only making them at a 36% clip on the year. But at the same time, you mix that up with getting other guys involved, as we saw with that last clip, is something that he has to be able to improve.
I think the percentages are down, and this does happen. A guy like Butler has led Baylor in scoring 11 out of 19 games. Is he gets put with the ball when the shot clock's at 10.
Yeah.
And they just throw you the ball. We all have those guys that we play with that it's like, all right, man, it's your time to go. Those tend to kind of knock down the percentages because you're asked to create and do things, well, and everyone knows that you're asked to create and do things. So that is something that he has to work on as far as, picking his spots and then also knowing when it's time to find a Mitchell, to find a Teague, to find a Gillespie, and not try to do too much by yourself.
And this clip here is a situation early in the game where you have a guy of his caliber, again, getting that deep into the lane. Your mind should automatically switch. As soon as you feel yourself getting closer to the rim, hey, maybe I should get my floater game going. As we saw him in the paint, use his body control to get himself a bucket. And this is here where, again, he gets walled up. At that time, get that ball out, reset, and maybe you can get something else going. Maybe a high ball screen or get into an isolation situation.
I think one thing that is a fact, crafty with the ball, shifty, but I would not say elite level athlete.
No, I wouldn't give him that title either.
And when we talk about the next level, those are the type of comparisons you want to hear, like, all right, are you just crazy burst? All right, I don't see that crazy burst. Nico Mannion is a good defender, not a great defender. I don't see those elite level just like, I can just jump higher than you. I can just run faster than you. So he's so shifty with the ball. That's something that, hey, he's only a sophomore, Cam.
Yeah.
We just assume that this guy's going to be junior, senior. He's not. So he still has a lot to learn.
And you talk about his undersize and just his ability to see the floor, and something he has to get better with was distributing the basketball. But here, if he has a teammate, in 31, you see him at the bottom of your screen, he's trying to get that ball out to him, but just a miscommunication, just a lazy pass. That's where his lack of size hurts him when he gets into the situation here. But look at that defense shift when they see him getting ready to attack the lane.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens and how far Baylor goes. Because right now, #1 in the country, playing outstanding basketball, 17 straight wins. It's their first undefeated January since January of 1948. So they're playing at a record pace right now. My fear is they go Final Four, maybe win a national championship. He's looking around being like, I think I'm ready for the next step. I have my concerns because, yes, is he a professional? No doubt about it. But I still think he has got a lot of room to grow from an offensive standpoint.
And I agree with you right there. And on the offensive standpoint, I'm glad you pointed that out, because we're looking at some bad three-point attempts. And all of these attempts that he's shooting, it's not really off of good ball movement on the system that they have. So he's almost like, okay, well, I'm the man on the team, so I have the freedom to have the green light to take these shots, but you have to be able to take better shots. A guy that from that range, again, he's shooting at a 36% clip from behind the arc. He has to be able to know what's a good shot and what's a bad shot. It's one of the harder things to do in basketball.
NBA personnel, when they described his jumper, they put it as smooth and the release was quick. So even though the shot doesn't go in, I like the fact that he was able to get that off. Now, any concerns about his form here or anything that you don't like?
Well, even though they're saying that he has a smooth and quick release, here he just kind of is into himself a little too much, dribbling the ball and has his head down and just jacks up a shot. I like his release. Again, he's making him at 36%. He's going to get better at that with more time. He's not going to be going to class anymore when he makes that jump to the NBA, so he'll have more time in the gym. But overall, Jared Butler is a very good player. Can they cut the nets down at the end of the year in college basketball? I think they can. Do you think they can?
I think there's enough size. I think there's enough strength. I think they do both things as far as offensively and defensively. And when you go to Kansas and knock off the Jayhawks in Lawrence, you can beat anybody in college hoops.
And remember, he had 31 last year as a freshman against Kansas. That's an inside look on Tape Don't Lie on Baylor's Jared Butler.